from Chicago, it's Startup Hype Man, the podcast. What's up, everyone? My name is Raj Nation, founder and chief pitch artist at Startup Hype Man, where we help startups, scale-ups, and grown-ups not suck at how they pitch themselves so they stand out to their audience and stand apart from the competition. This podcast is all about bringing you the hearts, the minds, and the stories of leaders in the startup ecosystem, talking through the strategies they have deployed in order to build and grow their companies. And it's officially season 17 of the show, and all season long we've got a special treat for you, bringing you guests exclusively from the Startup Hype Man client portfolio, giving you a piece of their journey. Before we begin, if you're not a subscriber yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And remember, you can catch all the episodes from our 17-season archive and learn how to pitch your startup at startuphypeman.com. All right, get your popcorn ready and get hyped because it's go time. Ladies and gentlemen, making his way to the microphone from New Delhi, India, and currently residing in St. Louis, Missouri, he is the founder and CEO of Engagedly. Please welcome Sri Chellappa.
Thanks, Raj. Thank you.
And I feel like a fire goes now. Crazy. Sri, as I said, is the founder and CEO of Engagedly, and all this season on Startup Hype Man, the podcast, we are featuring current and past clients within the Startup Hype Man portfolio. So it's truly been an honor over the years to work with Sri and his team at Engagedly, with the sales team and their overall pitch development. Engagedly is a company that impressed me right out of the gate. They are here to put an end to crappy performance management and instead get companies to align people and strategy through their engage, enable, and execute model. Now, Engagedly has grown to a point where they're at about $5 million ARR with 100 people on their team around the globe. So it's just really cool to see. Really cool. And sometimes I know really frustrating to have a team meeting where inevitably someone is signing on at 2 a.m. Local time. But today with Sri, we are specifically talking about driving revenue growth through guerrilla marketing strategies. Sri, why is this on your mind and why is it important to you?
You know, it's important because that is they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? And that's basically where we started. We didn't raise a lot of capital, and we had to really think about different ways to build your brand and build your presence and improve your lead gen. When you don't have the kind of money that Silicon Valley startups have that are raised, tens and millions of dollars. So that's something I think about, and it made us obviously a lot more resilient. In this whole 6 years we've been in business and still growing with very little capital that we've raised so far. So it's something I think about every day, and I don't want to lose sight of it because that's where the rubber meets the road for companies like us. And I think a lot of companies that you work with and the companies who are listening to it can really benefit from something where they don't feel like they need to go and ask a VC for 10, 20, $30 million to build their profile. Obviously, if they get the money, they should take it. But that being said, it's an alternative that can yield very good results.
We'll talk all about that and how Engagedly has gone about this over the years. Let's take a step back, though, and learn more about Sri, the person. Now, I had the opportunity earlier this year to actually visit your office in St. Louis. And we had a really fun time. And I looked at you then, and I kind of always have kind of looked at you as like the renegade CEO in that like the workday ends, but then like for you, like I think almost every night of the week, like playtime begins in that, you when you shut down the laptop, you actually built the Engagedly office on top of a recording studio. So you head down to the basement and you get on your drum kit and you literally just have like a multi-hour jam session after work every day. Can you tell me about how music influences you personally, but then also professionally?
Well, music, everybody loves music, right? Hopefully everybody loves music. If you don't love music, you should probably get your subject. But that being said, I think music is a good creative outlet for me because it really takes my brain off thinking. Because sometimes you overthink a problem and it actually makes it worse. Because at some point you just need to step away from it, go and do something else that's there's energizing, there's creative. After three, I start my day at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. typically. That's my normal day. And by the time it's 3 or 4 o'clock, I've already put in a 10-hour, good to 10, 12 hours of work. And I need a release of some sort. And I think, and the release doesn't necessarily mean you go out and open your liquor cabinet and pour yourself a scotch or a whiskey, or you go and eat pizza. It's something that actually energizes you and wakes you up again, for something more, to really experience life, if you will, in some ways. And that's what music does for me. Whether it's listening to music for some people, maybe it is, drawing or painting or something else that's creative. In my case, I always wanted to create things, and drumming was something that I got attracted to, and we started making music. And it just happened that I also own a recording studio in St. Louis, so it was, it's a good way to do that and release that. But it also helps because you get to meet people from different backgrounds, so you're not always talking to another technical marketer or a developer or a HR person. In my case, you're talking to creative people, and their struggles. And many of them are living, day to day on their paychecks and trying to still make creative music or other types of art. And you meet all these different walks of life who are equally brilliant, but they've chosen a different path in life. And you can learn a lot from, their struggles and how they've been working it and how they think, which allows you to maybe bring that some of that into your life and your work.
What I really appreciate is that you said a release should not be something that pulls you down. It should be something that gives you life. And I think a lot of people do take the opposite approach, where they're like, I need the thing that, we resort to. Oh, I have to have that drink after work or whatever it might be. But it's really stuff that ultimately damages us and doesn't really feed us creatively or otherwise. And to that note of, interacting with people who have walked different paths of life, the other reason I think of you as like this renegade CEO is because you're running a company that sells to HR departments. But I think it was like a year ago, I texted you and I was like, is this you I see on Amazon Prime? And like, you've actually directed movies before. Talk through your experience in film. And then, how do you go from producing movies to running a software company?
Yeah. Making movies was a passion, and it's still a passion, but I haven't had time since I started Engagedly. I think I didn't really go from that to this. I see both of them as different creative endeavors. One of them obviously is a little bit more artistic in nature, but there's a big commercial aspect to that as well. Building a software and selling the software and helping the organizations is fundamentally similar process as writing a script, casting it, building a team together, and then shooting the film, editing it, and then launching it, and then marketing it, and make sure it gets enough eyeballs on the film. Very similar process, except it's just a different industry with a different type of product. So I think it's very similar in many ways. It's not as different. In one case, you're creating software where you're thinking about a potential problem and a solution that you can offer to the market. In another case, you're thinking about what can I creatively tell a story that people like, and they're both storytelling in many ways. I think you talk about that a lot when in your marketing. You're telling a story of how this person went on this journey, right? In our case, it's a journey of a CEO or a journey of an employee through their development and growth, or the manager in managing and executing on corporate initiatives. And then how can a software help that? And the journey of how Engagedly helped that, that's the story of Engagedly. In this case, it's a story of, these 4 grandmothers in my last movie, bad grandmas. So it's very similar in many ways, it's not necessarily related. It's just something I love to do on the side anyway, too, so that I'm not always, stuck in corporate thinking 24 hours a day.
Yeah, which has a ton of value to it, isn't it? The thing I always preach in all the content with Startup Hype Man is think like an entertainer. That's how you will succeed in business, is if you treat it more like an entertainment product, not just in how it'll affect your messaging, but I think just from a mindset perspective, if you look at, for example, like how a movie comes together, right? There's a lot of value in business. And then on top of that, look at how the entertainer just puts their audience first. And they think through, how do I engage with this audience? How do I create an emotional connection with them? And if we do that more on the business side, I think we'll have all around better relationships. We'll have more successful marketing. We'll have more successful sales and more success. So then can you talk through the actual journey to create Engagedly? I mean, I think there's a lot of, A, why a software company? And then B, why specifically a product that sells to HR?
Well, I'll start with saying there's no money in independent filmmaking, first of all. As much as I love it, it's one of the worst business decisions anyone can make, unless you're backing a studio that already has a guaranteed market and you're making Avengers Part 7, which has a built-in audience. So that being said, software, I've always loved software. I've been programming since I was 15, I think. I mean, I don't program anymore, but I got, loved software in India. I was in, I think, 9th or 10th grade when MS-DOS was taken off, and I loved programming. So I've always loved that because it's a creative aspect. It's like you're writing, it's writing code. It's just like writing, but it's just in a different language, and you're telling, stories, and you're building a product that is something that you bring to life. But that being said, my whole journey actually was in management consulting before Engagedly, and Engagedly came through a friend of mine, Jay, who you probably talked to as well. He had an idea for building an engagement software that will drive better engagement at workplace. And I really resonated with that idea because when I was consulting, I saw people who were looking at work as a drudgery, yet they spend most of their time at work, because by the time they get home, they don't really have energy to engage with their own families, and they're basically this is one of the things I was saying. People work for the weekend, and that's not how a life should be, in my opinion. And at least we should aspire that you're not living a life where you're always working so that you can get to the weekend, and then you work again and you get to the weekend. But what if we can make work more fulfilling, where people really feel like this is part of their life? The whole concept of work and life and work-life balance, I like to think of work-life integration, where work is your life and life is work, and they both should be enjoyable and fulfilling. And it shouldn't be just about, working for money so that you can have your weekend and your fishing trips and your, ski vacations and whatnot. So Engagedly was born out of that concept, that how can we make workplace more fulfilling and fun by building tools to connect people, build relationships, give them purpose at work, where they feel like, what work they do is actually moving the ball forward. It has meaning, at workplace. So that was basically the idea behind Engagedly, to make it a little bit more fulfilling. And I think we are seeing a lot more of that. And when we started, it was kind of a new thing that was taken up, but now people are talking about, how do you engage people and how do you motivate them so that people don't quit? Because we are seeing this huge wave of resignations, and people are deciding not to go back to work, especially in the hospitality industry. We've seen these people who just completely quit hospitality industry because it sucked. And now, and during the COVID and short staff as restaurants are, it sucks even more for the people who work there.
One quick remark I want to make on that concept of the work-life integration. I also believe in that. I don't know what the term is, if it's that or if it's just life, right? But the way I look at, I think even at like a base level of that is, let's say it's like Thanksgiving or day after Thanksgiving. See, I enjoy what I do so much that I might, check my email like on Thanksgiving. And you know what? No one says they do, but everyone really does. which makes me think like the best time to prospect might actually be Thanksgiving Day, because everyone in that like 3 hours before their family arrives or while they need a break for their family is probably looking at their phone. But anyways, like, whether it's me like checking LinkedIn or checking email or doing something quick for the business, like I'm not saying I go out and like work holidays, but if I do something like that, I don't feel like bad about doing it, or I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm being dragged into work. It's just something I'm like, it's part of my like functioning. But the balance or the integration is that, I also counter that with, there's times where it's 2:00 and I'll dip out to get a haircut.
Right.
Or,
Right.
I'll schedule the dentist appointment for 10 a.m. or I'll go get lunch with a friend, right? There is a healthy balance. It's not that I'm working, sitting down 8 to 5 every single day, nothing else. And then also working on holidays or checking in on stuff, at night, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yes. And I saw this some other day and I realized this is what I was doing anyway, for many years now, is that whole concept of 8 to 5 is nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't think we should be like 8 to 5 is work time. After 5, don't call me, don't email me. I need to do this, which is spend time on TV or family or whatever. I mean, I think you just need to figure out what works best for you and your circumstances without compromising on either your family and friends and your own leisure things that you do, or at work, right? And what makes best sense for that. I think that's really what makes better sense, because then everybody could win in that, because you have in your life all these things as different stakeholders: your work, your boss, your company, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, kids, and then your other leisure, in my case, my band, or whether it is other things that you do for your hobby or fun, whether it's if you're working out, which is very important that you fit that into the day. Sometimes I'll go for a run at 2 p.m. because the sun is out and it's a good day, good time to go for a run.
Enjoy it.
So you figure that out, and as long as you're able to do that in a cohesive manner. Obviously, it requires a little bit of a better time management and compartmentalizing as well. So when you're playing soccer with your kid, don't be checking your email at that time. Spend that time, quality time, stay focused, and be mindful and be present. Something that I'm not saying I'm the expert in this. I'm saying I've learned that the hard way now.
Or I need to spend time with your dog.
Exactly. Sorry about that.
How good. Well, let's talk about our primary topic today, which is driving revenue growth through guerrilla marketing. I want to start this by asking, how do you at Engagedly define guerrilla marketing?
So guerrilla marketing is, my definition of guerrilla marketing is where you can get an aha moment of this one resonated with the audience that I want to go after, or at least be in front of, without spending a lot of money, right? So I'm not necessarily buying a Super Bowl ad or something equivalent of that in our space. Would be, let's say I'm the platinum sponsor of this big conference. I'm paying $50,000 for that sponsorship. How can you do that? That gives you similar results at a fraction of the cost. And something that is not just pure advertising, but also puts you as a thought leader. Because thought leadership marketing, I think, is the best way of marketing. If you're marketing saying, hey, buy us, and you can spend a bunch of money on that. Or you can say, hey, this is something that we think will be helpful and add value to your work. And you're not selling anything. You're just saying, I'm offering this as an expertise out in the world. And if you're interested in talking more, obviously, you know how to reach me. And now, how do you do that at a fraction of the cost? And that's, to me, is guerrilla marketing.
One way Engagedly has successfully gone about that over the last few years is through publishing every year this top 100 industry influencers list. What was the strategy behind that in the first place, and how do you actually go about that?
So the strategy behind that was, at that time, nobody was really doing that kind of a list. There were other shorter lists that some blogs were doing. I think HR Tech Symposium or whatever, they did something around top 25 or whatever. I don't remember. But anyway, they didn't really do that. But actually, this was an idea that came to me because we did a similar thing in my previous startup that I worked on in the healthcare industry. And we used to do, we still do actually, which I'm not part of that anymore. We used to call them hit men or hit women. And HIT stands for healthcare IT, HIT. And we would honor the top influencers and movers and shakers in the healthcare technology space. And that really resonated in that space. We did a great thing. We would actually have a sidebar, happy hour at a major conference in Vegas, and we spent a little bit of money on it, but not a lot, But we got the heads of these top insurance companies and providers and hospital systems who are really hard to get to be there because everybody likes to get honored, right? So similar concept, I wanted to do in HR space because there's a lot of movement in the HR space and people management, especially lately, there's a lot more. But we started this about 4 or 5 years ago. And that was the idea behind it. But what we wanted to focus on primarily was not academics, right? Hey, just because you published a bunch of articles or journal articles and you did some research, that's great. But I think that was one component of it. We were looking at influencers, the people who actually had a voice, so that other people can go and seek them out as because all the HR professionals out there are learning, right? And who can you learn from? And these are the influencers who are promoting an idea or promoting some new way of doing things or a better way of doing things. And that's where the list was born out of. So it is based on not just your thought leadership per se, but also the influence you have outside of the thought leadership and in terms of moving the industry forward. So whether it's through social media, whether it's through speaking engagements, whether it's through publishing articles and books and things of this nature.
So that's with that list, how did you decide who should make the list? And then was this one of those things where it's like, sometimes I'll get those emails that are like, hey, we've identified you as a top person, pay $500 and we'll give you an award. Is it like that thing, or is it just like hey, we want to award you, it's a free thing and we want to publish you in this report?
Right. Well, we don't charge for sure.
Good.
In fact, there have been some HR professionals who have offered to give us money several times, and we've said, no, that's not how we do things here, because that dilutes the value of the list. That's not the value. The value is not for us to make money. The value of us is to really provide real thought. In a way, it's a thought leadership piece of saying, hey, these are the top influencers who are making waves. In case you missed this research or article or the speaking engagement this person did, you should listen to this person because this person is making a lot of sense and it's getting a lot of traction out there. So we partnered with we have a partnership with Washington University Entrepreneurship Center where we get an intern or two from them every summer. So that is typically one of the projects we work with the intern over the summer. And these guys are very sharp math background people. I mean, they're not math majors, but they're in digital marketing or they're in some kind of a science-related major. So we use a little bit of a data-driven approach to this to make it really unbiased to some extent. And I really don't get involved in this list at all to some extent. The only way I get involved is to make sure there's no imbalance in the list. So if you have too many people in one category and not enough, or too many white men in a category or overall, that's not a good thing, because there's this thing that men are out there more even in the HR space, which is actually counter to what the HR population is. The first year we published the list, there were 65 or 70 in that range, men, not just white men, but just men. But HR professionals, by and large, is probably the opposite. So it was not a representative list. So we fixed that. I get involved to make sure it's good balance. But it's all data driven. We look at the frequency of publications, the recency of publications, the value of the publication itself, with some self-published blog versus it's published in Forbes magazine or published in some more reputable magazines or articles out there. We look at their Twitter presence, their Twitter followers, the LinkedIn presence, followers there. We'll also look at academic publications as well. So and we weight these scores. And the algorithm changes slightly every year. I mean, it's not as comprehensive as a Google search algorithm, but there is an algorithm, and we change these algorithms to make sure it has good meaning, to that extent. And that's basically how we do it for the most part. So sometimes we get surprised, people I've never heard of sometimes show up, and it's because of something they did recently. And and we leave it up to the interns and some of our professional services team to work together on that. So it's our people and the intern who put this together, and then I just scan it, a couple of hours and make sure it looks good and we have the right categories, and it's equitable in many ways, and then we put it out there.
How do you put it out there then? Is it like a blog? Is it a PDF? What's the actual like work product of it?
Okay, so the guerrilla marketing, right, is two for, and you are an expert in many of these things. We publish the list, right, and then there are 100 people in the list roughly. Sometimes it's 99, sometimes 101, but it's roughly amount, because sometimes it's a tie and we'll include both at the end. And the way we do it is we put out a press release first. So that gets press, and obviously everybody likes lists, top this, top that. Everybody loves that. It's like the billboard of HR, if you will. And then we do a LinkedIn post, and we have different categories. We'll have talent acquisition as a category, total rewards as a category, employee engagement as a category, talent management as a category. So different categories, right? So we'll do different posts specifically on that, different blogs specifically on that, and we highlight these people and we tag them in LinkedIn. So that obviously helps. And these guys are already influencers. So they obviously like to share that they are on this list now, but they were already influencers. So we get that, the reach multiplier from them, right? Because each of them has thousands and thousands of followers on LinkedIn and Twitter. And some of them have like 100,000, 200,000 followers on Twitter, and 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, so that's, we do that
kind
on
of like
LinkedIn.
Built-in virality, right?
There's a built-in virality on that. And everybody likes to, a little bit of an ego thing, I guess, right? Or because you're building
you like to share that you've been recognized.
You like to share that you won this award. I do that. I won a couple of awards for some odd reason, but I like to share that too. So, so that's basically how we promote this. And then we publish blog, we do LinkedIn, and it goes out. And every year we do this, our Engagedly LinkedIn followers does a jump like this on Engagedly's company page. Literally, we get a 20%. This summer, we get a 20% increase in LinkedIn followers on our page. I think we are like 3,500 or 4,000 or something like that right now. We were below 3,000 this summer. And then we just jumped 20% in 1 month. So that's LinkedIn followers are now they're there for perpetuity, right? Unless they unfollow us. Now,
which, to be honest, is rare. Like once you start following something, specifically on the LinkedIn platform, people don't usually unfollow. You're not getting like LinkedIn's not a place like Instagram or Twitter where you're going to unfollow because someone is saying something highly like politically controversial, and you're like, I don't need to see this.
Right. So there's this virality, but that also has a longer durational time component to it too, and that's basically how we do that.
So then, is this that idea of like you have it like in perpetuity? There's this dovetail effect. When you release that list, are you going into it saying, "Hey, we're doing this, and we want to generate X number of leads out of this," or is it more of like, "Hey, we're doing this to create overall awareness," and if it is overall awareness, is there then like aftermath kind of plan to be like, okay, how do we take this from awareness into getting them into our funnel at all?
I wouldn't say there's a lot of math that we build behind it. I think it started off as an idea one day for me, and we started doing it, and we saw the impact, and we continue to improve that approach. The whole approach here really wasn't really to build leads per se. It was to build brand awareness and being a thought leader, right? In this case, a thought leader is somebody who puts a list. Now, we've done it for 5 years now, and I think 5 years or 6 years. So that gives you credibility that we've been doing this for every year. And I told my people, we won't, just because we don't have people, we won't do it. We have to keep that consistency. We got to do this every year. And now the list gets featured. So this list gets featured in other blogs. that other people write. Hey, if you want to check out the top influencers, check out this list, check out this list, check out this list. But one of those links is our links, right? There's this compounding SEO effect from that as well, which comes to our website.
So it's like you're like creating, like it ends up creating all these different paths and roads that lead back to Engagedly.
Correct. And then, like you said, top Billboard top list. I don't even know who looks at Billboard top list anymore, because Billboard was a big thing when I was growing up, but I don't even know
now
what
it's like top
anymore. What is Billboard? Is there such thing as a Billboard? I don't know, but people still talk about it, right? That's Billboard. Billboard is now a verb. So it's the same thing. I want Engagedly to be a verb, like Xerox was and like FedEx is, when it comes to that, obviously in a little microcosm of HR professionals, Engagedly needs to be the verb. Hey, we were on this Engagedly list. And that's basically, and it takes time, and I realize this, and I'm in this, it's not something that you can get instant results. Sure. The first year we did it, we got a little bit of result, and some people were poo-pooing the list. I was like, screw the critics, we'll keep doing it. And maybe the critics were poo-pooing it and I got some backlinks from it. Great. Let's keep doing it, So we'll improve and we'll continue doing it. And my goal is to keep doing this. And at some point, maybe, 4 or 5 years from now, we'll maybe have a big gala in Vegas or wherever, some place. And
I'll be your MC.
And you can be the MC and you can wrap the opening, and we'll have all these influencers come in and do a big talk and whatnot, right? But that's the aspirational goal. But in the meantime, we'll keep doing this and build an audience out there. And the other thing we do is I individually email each of these people as well. So I take that effort personally to do that. Obviously, I use a little tool, but sure. I get all their emails. I send them an email congratulating them, and sometimes they're surprised. They have no idea they made the list, because, like I said, it's not something that we go and say, hey, if you want to be in the list, give us $1,000. It's more like, hey, we looked around. You're on this list. You don't have to do anything, but congratulations. And here's the link to the list. Here's a link to the LinkedIn post. And here's a little badge, like a little badge we give them if they want to put it on their profile. That's great. And many of them have it in their LinkedIn profile. They will say that they're Engagedly top 100 HR influencer on their LinkedIn profile. So there's
and it's interesting how much that stuff really does matter, right? So like, as of us having this conversation and this recording, as you know, I'm in that Chili Piper top marketer on LinkedIn tournament, right?
Yes. You're gonna win it.
Which I mean, being part of that, like you just said with your list, when I was like tagged in a LinkedIn post saying I'm part of this, I was like, oh, whoa, no way, I made it. That's pretty cool. I mean, they really only selected 32 people. It's a pretty select list. And you best believe, and by the time this recording hits the air, this tournament will be long over. But you best believe if I win this thing, it's going to go out like in my banner on my profile, right? Like top marketer on LinkedIn, because there's some inherent like perceived value in that. Yeah. And I would take pride in that as well. It's not just like a vanity thing. It's like, hey, peers recognize me. And in your case, right, their peers recognize them for their contributions to the industry. And then that, it's almost like just like this reinforcing cycle.
Yeah. We were like, Gary V, watch your back. Raj Nation is coming for you.
I want to spend a couple minutes talking through another guerrilla marketing strategy that you did back in 2020. But before I get there, I just want to pose a question to the listeners. And it is, what's your opinion of Google Analytics? And I should probably drag it a little bit more and say, how many of you actually hate Google Analytics? I would guess a lot of you are nodding your head, maybe raising your hand in your car. If you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel, but you're probably nodding along to that. I know I've had a lot of issues with GA over the years, and understanding where and why I lose site visitors before they convert is pretty hard. So with GA, there's always some integration issues, or you have to sort through like a mountain of data just to figure out what's causing leads to drop off. It's a nightmare. So I was excited to learn about a better way to measure website analytics, and that's through a company named Oribi. Oribi is a unique marketing analytics tool that captures all the events visitors perform on your website without installing code, without having to use code. So Oribi enables you to analyze visitor behavior patterns, build smart funnels, and then get tons of insight So that way you always know what your next step is. And to me, the way I like to look at that is it's like you can actually understand the visitors on your site and know what to change in order to convert them better, as opposed to having a site, but then just like it's a site that you always feel like has blind spots on it. If you want to get started with Oribi, you can start on a free trial. Just visit oribi.io/today. That's ORIBI.io/today. And as a special offer for them being partners of the show, you can use the coupon code HYPEMAN, all one word, HYPEMAN, for 20% off any plan. That's Oribi, ORIBI.io/today, Oribi.io/today. Use the code HYPEMAN for 20% off any plan. Today on Startup Hype Man, the podcast, we're talking with Sri Chellappa, the founder and CEO of Engagedly. We're talking about driving revenue growth through guerrilla marketing. The other strategy that I mentioned before the break there that I want to spend a couple minutes covering is spring of 2020. Pandemic hits. Everyone is panicking, right? No one knows what's going on. And within like, I don't know, the first week, maybe 2 weeks, it probably didn't even take that long. Engagedly comes out with this free remote work toolkit, and you distribute it out to all your customers, everyone in your newsletter database, you're posting it online. And I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. The fact that it's free is always helpful, but you were just like right there and right away coming with this resource, because a lot of your customers, your customers aren't like the 4-person startup who they're already working from home anyways. You got a lot of customers, you have like a CVS, for example, who's got thousands of employees. No one has ever worked from home in that company in their life before. And there's one department in charge of figuring out how to make it happen for everyone. And then you've got this remote work toolkit of resources and how-tos that's really valuable for them. How did you put that together so quickly? And how did you just come up with that strategy?
Well, I don't know which politician or political strategist said this: never let a crisis go to waste. I don't remember who said that. I heard it was Emmanuel Ram, but I'm not sure.
Rahm Emanuel?
Rahm Emanuel, not Emmanuel.
Former mayor of Chicago.
Former mayor of Chicago, former chief of staff for Obama.
Yeah.
I think it was him. I'm not sure, but I'll attribute to him for now. Anyway, so this was a crisis for everybody, including us, because we were like, oh shit, a lot of our companies are small. They're gonna suffer. And now we have to figure out how to help them and help many of these customers. But at the same time, also look at how do we help, but also get some, benefit value out of this at the same time. So it's a win for everybody. So it was really this aha moment because I saw, actually what triggered this was when I saw this Zoom. The CEO, I forgot his name now, said Zoom was going to be free for everybody during that time. And I was like, okay, what can I do similar to that for Engagedly? I think it was Zoom or somebody else who did that first. Zoom, I know, did that, but I don't know if that was the one that triggered me or something else. And I started thinking, okay, what can I do that could do similar? And we came up with this remote work toolkit, which is basically a smaller subset of Engagedly tools that you can be effective and productive and stay engaged when you're not in the same room, in the same office anymore. So that was a collection of, a little collaboration tool, a social tool, recognition tool, goal alignment, goal setting tool, that now you can go and work in your home, but now you're still connected. You know what your goals are. Everybody knows what your goals are, and they know how you are doing against your goals, and you can start, working together. And that was basically it. That was a very small collection of different things. And we said, this is free till end of, I think it was end of the year or end of September or something like that, because we thought pandemic will only last 6 months. Obviously, at least I was very, very wrong about it. So we extended it till the end of the year, and we said, if you want it after the year is over, we'll renew you at a smaller fee. So it was one way to get a lot of customers, a lot of interest. Now, we didn't get a lot of customers from that, but we got a lot of buzz from that, and that's okay. And that's what I got out of that. So that was the impetus and what we got out of that. And I was hoping for a lot more revenue and customers from that, but that we didn't really quite get that bump that I was hoping for. But I wouldn't call that effort waste, because it did get a lot of press, a lot of other blogs and articles were written about how these companies are offering tools to help employees, and we got listed in that list. So there were, there was a lot of other collateral benefits from that.
Well, and that's something I want to just really make sure we double click on or underscore. And that is, again, the topic today is driving revenue growth through guerrilla marketing. But a lot of this, it does not mean that it is released today, revenue tomorrow. A lot of this is, how do you set yourself up for long-term success, and the gains come back to you over time? Because sure, you get a handful of people who use that toolkit and they're like, hey, we should actually buy Engagedly now. But then what happens more often is you get a lot of other people who hear about, oh, Engagedly was that company who gave out that free toolkit. Yeah, I've heard of them before. And that happens because maybe they see the influencer list as well. They're like, oh yeah, Engagedly did that thing. Oh wait, where were they? Also that company that did that toolkit? Right. And then it's like these consistent ways of showing up in different places create this overall brand familiarity, which then, and it may take it may take them 6 months to become a lead. It may take them a year. It may take them 18 months to become a lead. But you're ultimately able to condition the market so that Engagedly has presence. And when they do make that decision to come in, they're coming in already feeling like they know you. And they're like, oh, well, they're, like you said earlier, Sri, it's all about thought leadership, right? Customers want to work with the thought leaders in the industry. That's who leads the category. That's who creates the rules for everyone else. And so if you're able to establish that market thought leadership, it comes back to you over time. One thing I did, similar time frame last year, I released this free, I called it the Pandemic Strategy Pack. And it was just like literally a Google Drive folder with like 8 Google Docs in it on how to augment your messaging to be early pandemic friendly. Because remember, at that point, everyone was like, oh my God, how do we even prospect right now when everyone's worried about their livelihood? So it was like a walkthrough of how to do these different things. And that returned, a couple customers. More importantly,
right.
It generated just like familiarity. It drove a lot of email subscribers. Actually, someone who's now become one of our team members at Startup Hype Man was a result of that strategy pack originally, because she saw that and she was like, oh my God, this is really good. I think I might be able to help them. So they became a team member as a result of that strategy pack. And if I recall, that was actually the thing that we started working with Engagedly again, because I think I don't think you had seen it on your own, but I think I sent it to you and I was like, hey, this might be helpful. And then that led to a conversation and then we started working with Engagedly again. Right. And so I'm bringing up these different examples and points to say that I feel like the failure of a lot of marketing teams and of a lot of startups in their growth phase is the very short-term thinking to say, yes, oh, if there's not a direct funnel that exists that turns over a lead to a customer in 9 days, it's a pointless effort. But I feel like that's the mindset, and I want you to comment on this as well. I feel like that's the mindset that will get you some customers in the short term, but it keeps you in a mode of constantly playing catch up to other people in the market.
Yeah, the way to think about it is it's a struggle, right? Especially if you have not raised a bunch of money, or if you're not Oracle or Workday or SAP in my space. How do you compete against them? And if you keep thinking about, hey, before I spend $1,000, I need to make sure I get 15 leads from it or 20 leads from it. If you keep thinking like that, I think it's going to restrict your viewpoint. And if you think beyond that and say, how do I build thought leadership overall? And then overall, it will bring it down, bring my leads in. And sometimes, I can't put a number on it because even I don't know if even Coca-Cola can do that. What was the impact of that billboard on Interstate 55? I don't know, and I don't know if Coca-Cola actually knows what impact of that.
Sure.
They may claim they know. I'm sure
it's all like projected impressions, right? The
network have some data scientists who are crunching numbers and whatever. I don't know. They'll have some algorithm behind it, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But that being said, there's this presence. So when you go and go and buy something, you basically have 3 or 4 brand names you will look at. It's the same thing. There was this concept, I don't know, in marketing that I learned in my B school called the evoked set, which is when you go and look for, let's say you're buying a car, there's an evoked set, which is your list of 4 or 5 or 6, but no more than 8 typically, that you look at. And the goal of every brand should be to make it into the evoked set for their target market, for the ICP. Now, as long as Engagedly is in the evoked set for our target market, which is mid-market, companies that are employee-friendly and are growing, and they want to drive better culture, I want to be in that evoked set, right? Now, after that, it comes to our product, our sales process, our value proposition to win that deal. So the goal of all these initiatives is really to figure out how do we get into the evoked set. So when they think of something, when they're ready to buy, are we in that list of 8 people or 8 companies or 4 or whatever the number is, that evoked set? And that's how I think about, so that when they hear about us, it's not the first time they've heard about it. They've heard about us before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I think this speaks to something that I've really been big on over the last few years and trying to preach is this notion that B2B marketing really should be treated like B2C marketing, right? Like you said, if Coca-Cola can have a billboard just to let you know they exist, why shouldn't an HR software company do things just to let you know that they exist? And that's brand presence and it's brand awareness.
Right.
Let's I want to ask one more question, then we'll hit our wrap up. And that is, if you're giving advice to someone, what are the main things a company should consider when trying to develop a guerrilla marketing strategy, and how should success be determined?
So I would say the guerrilla marketing strategy is to figure out what will make it go viral. And what about this is something that will make it go viral? What about this something somebody want to go and share to other people? If it's not enough to think about, hey, this will help people download it and look at it, but I think you need to think beyond, okay, what will it do? How can I make this so that not only will they look at it, but they will say, hey, you guys should look at it as well. So that second degree of propagation, I think, has to be built into that initiative that you're thinking about. If it only has first degree, then it's not true guerrilla marketing. In my opinion, the guerrilla marketing has to have the second degree, where you're doing something where you're not only reaching that in the first degree of audience, where you're also seeing how it can drive this first degree to get to the second degree.
Yeah. I want to actually very specifically make a distinction in something that you just said there, because I don't want the listeners to overlook this. In asking the question of how do we go viral, or how does this go viral? There's something very specific that you said within that should not be overlooked, because I think where a lot of companies fail is they sit there and they just go, oh, well, how do we go viral? And that's like almost like the wrong starting point. And that's why I'm saying, like, there's a clear point in what you said that I want to make sure it doesn't get overlooked. And it's the way you ask that question is, what about this would make someone want to share it? Because I think when people say, oh, how do we go viral? They're like, oh yeah, we'll just put this in front of them and they'll want to, and we'll put a share button on it and people will click that. And it's like, no, it's what about this is shareable naturally. The the motto I follow with all of our content, or most of it anyway, is it's actually it's a more extreme version of that. It is how do we create something so good or unique or interesting that the person consuming it can't go to sleep that night until they've shared it with someone else. If you can create can't sleep content, right? Like they have to get it out. They have to get it in someone else's hands before their head hits the pillow that night. That is where you really dial into that like true, like inherent virality, and not the forced virality of, oh, we put a tweet button on it, therefore it's going to go viral.
Yes. And the thing is, the people don't understand, not everybody understands the math of that, because the first degree is, let's say it's 10. The second degree is an order of magnitude. It's 10 times 10, it's 100. So it's not like going from 10 to 15. It's going from 10 to 100. And that's why it's so important to spend that extra effort, because you'll be doing 10 tens to get the same result. And you still may not get the same results than spending the time or your creative juices on building that one that gets you that 100.
I want to get to our wrap up now. First off, where can our listeners find you, Sri, and where can they learn more?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to find me. It's Sri Chellappa, SriChellappa, co-founder, president of Engagedly, engagedly.com, engagedly.com.
Who's one person who you want to give a shout out to who has been helpful in your journey?
Oh my gosh. There's not one person though. There's so many people.
You got to pick one. For the sake of this exercise, you got to pick one.
I like to, it's not a person I've met. I like to meet someday. And a person I love to hate and I love to love, depending on the day, is Elon Musk, obviously. Because people might debate this, but I think he's a greater influence and a greater visionary and a greater, I think, executioner than Steve Jobs was. And no disrespect there. Only because a couple of things. One, yes, he's done great things like Steve Jobs did. But what I really liked about him, which I like about him or aspire about him, is that he was able to do multiple things and bring them to reality at the same time, which is similar to how I live my life, in many ways, with music and movies and the startup. How do I do that and still be effective in all of them and manage my life? I don't know. That's probably, I'll give a shout out to Elon Musk, I guess. That's and the way he does viral things, unbelievable, right? The guy knows viral marketing like no one's business. That guy is
everybody's buying Dogecoin.
Yeah, Dogecoin.
That Mark Cuban
doing Twitter polls to spend money, or raise money or whatever you want, and pay taxes. The last thing he did. Just you can learn a lot from that and try to figure out how does that fit into your microcosm in context of this discussion. How can you do that in your little microcosm?
We'll now do our top one or two lessons or takeaways for the listeners based on the discussion today. I'll go first and I'll toss it to you. Our topic today was driving revenue growth through guerrilla marketing. I think the key lesson out of this discussion for me is be willing to play the long game. Sure, you will get some short-term wins, but be willing to invest in the long game. Sri?
I would say in viral marketing, you have to be willing to take criticism. There will be haters out there. You shouldn't be afraid to put out content that you can stand behind. You have to stand behind. You can't just make some bullshit claim and not be able to stand behind it. But stand behind it and be able to face criticism. When we put out the top 100, for example, I knew there was going to be criticism because people are going to be, this is not top 100. These guys should be on this list. Why is this person on the list? Why am I not on the list? Fine, it's fine. I'm gonna miss people. The first time I put out a list, I had 70% men in HR. Fine, I took the criticism. We got beaten down in a couple of blogs pretty badly, and people got out. And some of my people were very panicked. We should have really not done this right or whatever. I'm like, no, it's fine. We learn, we move on, and we do it better next time. So do not be afraid of, because when you're putting out there, you're going to get people throwing stones at you. And these are the people who throw stones at you are the ones who have done jack shit in their life.
My final question, which is how we end every episode on this show. Fill in the blank, Sri. Entrepreneurship is blank.
Hard. Really hard. Not for everyone.
He is Sri Chellappa of Engagedly. Sri, thank you so much for joining today on the show. Appreciate this conversation on Startup Hype Man, the podcast.
All right. Thanks, Raj. It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
That does it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and leave a rating and review in your podcast app, or do us one better. Hit the share button. Send this episode to one friend who you think needs to hear it. While you're on your way out, don't forget to follow Startup Hype Man on Instagram and LinkedIn at Startup Hype Man. And remember, you can also connect with today's guest as well. They left their contact info. They love hearing if what they shared helped you in any way. StartupHypeMan.com is the place to catch the full 17-season archive and learn all about how to pitch your startup. We'll see you next week, but until then, stay hyped. Raj Nation out.